On this episode, some satisfying before and after shots. I try to troubleshoot a squeaky noise from the suspension. And I almost set myself on fire as I try to get the car aligned. Hello and welcome back to Project Red Mage, a 1991 Nissan 240SX with about 219,000 miles on it. Last episode, we refreshed the brakes, installed some horns, and 3D printed some custom turn signals in an effort to make this car street legal. After registering the car and making it street legal, I enjoyed it for a whole whopping 2 weeks before I decided that I needed to replace the entire rear subframe suspension to make this car drive on rails. Hello and welcome back to Project Red Mage, a 1991 Nissan 240SX with 219,000 miles on it. And I want to have this as a street/track build. However, there's only one problem, is that these have all the original bushings in the rear subframe, so it's going to win the twerking competition, and that's not a good thing. Anytime that I go into any kind of twisties, this thing feels a little bit nervous and wobbly. The front end feels a little bit more dialed in now, and that's because I replaced the whole entire front end suspension. If you're curious about that journey, check out my Instagram and TikTok at ParkerZF. Now on the rear subframe, we do need to replace the control arms, the bushings, the subframe bushings, and probably whatever else is hiding underneath there that I may not know about. And I'm sure that there is going to be discoveries to be made. You know, nothing is more attractive than driving this thing in the city and then pulling up to a red light whenever you're like in neutral, and then all you hear is just... Let me tell you, that happened to me, and people were just staring at me because I couldn't figure out where it was coming from. Because from the exterior, this car looks pretty nice, but then like it sounds like a freaking garbage truck coming down the road. Honestly, I would equate the rear subframe as kind of like the backbone of any car suspension. And this one has seen better days. In fact, I don't have a vote of confidence whenever I go on to the twisties, and taking this to the track right now or any kind of drifting events is completely outside of the question. So let's see if I can change that, or if this thing is going to fight me every step of the way. Oh, and by the way, I have zero mechanical training, so what could go wrong? Oh man, only a light year later. I really need to invest in some quick jacks. After a closer inspection, my suspicions came true. It's very possible that a lot of these bushings are still from the factory all the way from Japan. A lot of them showed signs of wear and tear, cracking, and even falling apart. Even more shocking, the rear driver's side subframe bushing is split and is just resting on the coupler. So let's fix that. 17mm wrench socket. Please don't let crap get into my eye. How much longer is this damn bolt? Okay, hopefully now I can lower this thing safely. I said safely. Okay, it wants to slide off, that's fine. It wants to do its own thing. Surprisingly, this thing is not that heavy. Yeah. Wait a minute, what am I doing? Almost started filming without my mic. I would have been a silly little goose if I did that. Ooh, these are crusty. Wow, that thing is on there good. My eyes. Oh my god, who needs to go to the gym whenever you can just wrench on a 30-year-old car? Dude, this thing is gonna break. I already know it. Lucky. I just noticed something, that this is an S14 differential, and the reason why I know that is because only the S14s have a bushing combination to it attached to the outer differential casing, and then also it is an ABS differential. You could see that the little hose was cut right there. The non-ABS modules do not have that. What'll be interesting is when I pull this off to see what kind of differential is in the car. Maybe it's got some kind of viscous, maybe it's open. What leads me to believe that maybe it's something special going on here. Ow! That did not feel good. That was not funny. So these are 14. These are pretty loose. I don't know what the torque specs are, but I don't think it should be this loose. Let's see if I can. Oh, nice. I could twist it with my arm. Ah, I hit my elbow again. That felt so good. Oh, that felt so good. Please do it more. I just need to remind myself I'm doing this because I want to have a good driving car. I'm doing this because I really want to have a cool driving car. Note to future self that the bolt is drive shaft facing, the nut is differential facing. So make sure you do that in the future. I forgot to film this, but luck is a little bit on our side. This thing has enough flexibility. So what I'll do is just move it a little bit over to the left so it's out of the way. And I'm supporting it with a jack. So it'll just hang out here. It shouldn't interfere with anything. If I don't have to take the front off, I don't really need to. So we'll be good there. This will be a little bit of slack. So when we bring down the subframe, that these are not gonna get hung up on these brackets over here. You need to remove the calipers. It's two 14mm bolts. Oh man, this thing is like all rusting. That freaking stinks. All the rust started to come back. And then there's another clip in the back there that we do need to remove to loosen up slack from the brake line. I just needed to get some leverage and get the camera out of the way. This is the clip. Just gotta pop it off. This is not gonna be elegant, and I'm just gonna do the best I can to wiggle this thing through. Ah man, I don't know how this is gonna work without opening the system. Yep, just not gonna be elegant. It's fine. This is fine. You may be asking, why 2 zip ties? The 1 is good enough. Well, 2's better than 1. We do need to just loosen these bolts for the coilovers so that there's a little bit of a wiggle room. I think this is supposed to be able to freely move up and down without any binding, and I can tell you right now, there is no movement whatsoever, and I could see the bushing, the subframe bushing moving up and down, which is pretty crazy. Check this out. Do you see that movement? Man, look at that. Now imagine just driving and feeling all of that suspension play every single time that you're taking any kind of corner, hard in the brake, hard in the gas. We don't want any of that. Getting ready to unbolt the subframe. We have a 117mm nut in the rear, another 17mm nut in the front, and then 2 12mm bolts that hold on the bracket. Before I unbolt the rear, I'm going to support the front subframe with 2 extra jack stands, just because there is a much heavier engine in the front and I don't want to unsettle the car and then have the front come down. First, I think we'll start with the support brackets. After giving it some thought, I'm going to remove this one as well, just because I don't want anything to get bound up. All right, after much deliberation, I think what I'm going to do is first unbolt the rear, and then I'll go to the front. Is that right? I need to think this through again. Okay, yeah, I think I'm going to go with unbolting the rears first, and then I'll move to the front. I'm not going to go all the way. What I do want to happen is for this to have its center of gravity rest onto the jack, and then I'll start removing the rear. So then the hope is it'll come out smoothly. I might need to get the breaker bar. Yep, need to get the breaker bar. Oh no, how am I gonna do this one? Check this thing out. This thing is kinked. No wonder this car drives like a bag of... Let's see if I can unbolt this guy real quick to make space for that. Okay, onto the front. I saw the subframe move. Put on your big boy pants and don't be afraid. But whenever things fall, just be ready for a friend to catch it. Or if you don't have a friend, just be prepared to have it fall on something very hard. In my case, it's my head because I'm super stubborn. All right, in theory, this should start coming off as soon as I start pressing the hydraulic press. What am I saying? Pressing the hydraulic press? In theory, this should start coming down as soon as I start releasing the pressure. Yep, it's coming down slowly. I just really want to double check that nothing is getting caught on the subframe
like the caliper brackets. Need to loosen these guys here. All right, let's see if you can see the e-brake cables. They are those guys right there. There's two sides. Looks like one of the brackets is actually broken, which is nice, but we're gonna go ahead and remove that. I think everything is off now. We can slowly bring this guy down. Okay, don't panic, don't panic. We got this. Take a different approach here. Try to be clever with the transmission jack. Whenever I should have just used a normal jack. Okay, now how do I get it out? I don't have any roller thingy-majiggies. All right, thank goodness I have two jacks. I'm gonna do a quick trick here. This is a moving puck with a towel. I'm gonna slide underneath here and make it a lot easier for me to move out the subframe. Yes, look at that. That is genius right there. There it is, in its all its glory. First time looking at it. Looks like there's a lot of dirt on here. Well, I am pretty sure that I found all of the dirt and the lifetime of this vehicle on the subframe, because this thing is gross. I mean, just crud everywhere. You could see the overspray from when the car was painted. That's why it has a little bit of a red tint. So we're gonna get all this refreshed. It's gonna be a lot of effort, but this is going to be 100% worth it. All I think to myself to keep myself motivated is that I just want to drive this thing, and whenever I drive it, I want this to feel planted to the ground and give me that vote of confidence to the steering wheel. Let's do it. It's good to see that I was rocking the street drives with 2 bolts in a diff and 2 missing. I hate doing these things. Lady luck is on my side today because I have the right size socket. There's only one problem though. Probably should have loosened this when this thing was on the car. Yeah, it's okay. We have solutions, not problems. Okay, what we'll do is we'll just pry it this way then. And a trick to keep the threads safe is to use your lug nut, crappy lug nuts, whatever. Just something to protect it. There we go. Oh, wow, nice. It's already loose. That makes it much easier on the next step. Did I ever mention that working on cars is like going to the gym? Nice. Super loose. Mimicking the other side as well. This is always helpful to label into a baggie and drop everything into the baggies so you don't have to worry about where things go. Because you know, the worst part about a build is whenever you finish bolting everything up and then you have like 2 random bolts and 2 nuts that you have no idea where they freaking go. All right, next up, we're gonna remove the hub. And I think the best approach is to take the camera control arm off to get access to the bolts in the back, and then also unbolt the ball joint. I found this to be strange. I don't know why Nissan did this, but this is a 17 bolt. This is a 17 nut. This is a 19 bolt. 19 nut, 19 bolt. What gives, Nissan? Why did you do this? Why did you do this? Now we have access to the lower ball joint bolt and the 4 bolts that hold the hub. 19, 19, 19, 19. Okay, it's all the same size. That's really good news. Thank you, Nissan. I already hate these pins. I really hate them. This is such a finally got it off at the expense of my finger. Thank you so much. All right, what in the world is this size here? It's a weird size. I hope I have the right size, because if I don't, I'm gonna be mad. It's not a 24. It's not a 19. Dumb size that nobody uses. 22. Thank freaking goodness. I bet you that sucker stuck on there real good. Real good. I had to use a subframe receiving coupler. It just hit on this area just a little bit with a dead blow, and off it came. Nice. There's supposed to be a bolt somewhere around here, and you can't even see it because of all the dirt. It turns out I was filming nothing, so I just unbolted this guy here. I got a bit carried away and just disassembled everything. Now we copy and paste on the other side. So righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. How was it that easy? Whoever left me empty bolts here, thank you. It's much easier to remove. And I guess instead of dealing with a pumpkin, I think the subframe was gonna be lighter. Yep, way lighter. All right. Use that core, baby. Use that core. Oh, the core is being used. The core is being used. Ooh.
With everything disassembled, we can take a much closer look at all the carnage that's happening within a rear subframe and all the suspension components. We have the lower control arm that looks like it has some metal-to-metal contact, have a crusty old knuckle bushing, a totally kinked toe arm, some blown ball joints, and pretty much a cracked subframe bushing on every single corner. We definitely have our work cut out for us as we're looking at changing 16 bushings, 2 ball joints, throwing some paint on here, replacing the diff gasket, and then reinstalling everything back into it. So let's get going.
One thing that I think people don't talk about is just how long it takes to actually clean all this stuff up. I've been literally cracking away at this stuff for about, I don't know, 10 hours, and I feel like I'm barely making a dent. Between degreasing everything and taking off all the rust from all the little parts, I still feel like I have a mountain to climb. One of the bigger tasks is definitely degreasing this rear subframe, and this one probably took the most amount of time, and it still has ways to go. There's little crevices, bits and pieces that really just, and no amount of spraying or scrubbing is going to take off. So a different strategy that I'm going to take is taking these towels and just rubbing in the crevices until all of the grease is gone. So then I could prime it for paint. Very painful experience. So put on a podcast, listen to some music that you enjoy. Yeah, let's go.
What you see me removing here is an OEM applied wax to protect it from dirt, grime, and debris. I am removing it to get that nice clean and even surface so whenever I apply the epoxy based paint that the results are going to look great. And the epoxy based paint will also serve as a protection against all of the road grime. After many hours of cleaning and degreasing, this is the final product. I could leave it here, but I do want to take it a step further and go ahead and paint it. Okay, let's press some bushings out with my contraption here.
Do it.
To make this job a little bit easier, I did purchase the GK Tech knuckle bushing removal kit. With the kit, it has a bolt, 2 washers, and a specialized machine receiving end, in addition to a nut locker to be able to crank away and remove the bushings with ease. Just remember to apply grease to the threads or otherwise you may damage the bolt.
I'm gonna be jacked by the end of this. It's just gonna be my right arm though. Whew.
Having the proper tools makes the world of a difference. I didn't have to burn these out, I didn't have to drill them out, just set the press and remove. With the 6 bushings out, it's time to move on to the lower control arm. You saw me fail miserably with a shop press. I completely forgot about that whenever you are using a press, it's probably better that the item is less bulky. And in this case, the lower control arm got a lot of awkward angles and shapes and hard to position itself to try to pull on the press at the same time. So what I've done is I went and invested into this tool. It is a lower ball joint or really a ball joint removal tool. It makes quick work of this. I already did the left-hand side. This makes the removal and installation an absolute breeze. I think that the way that the factory lower control arm is shaped has these little edges. You just want to make sure that they are flush and that they don't get pinched. You don't want to compromise the structure of the lower control arm. Try to give you an idea. You want it to sit flush.
And then we just crank away.
A mistake that I've made here is failing to apply the grease. If you do end up doing this in the future, please do so. Otherwise, you may end up damaging the threads.
There we go.
After closer inspection, to my surprise, the ball joint didn't seem that bad, even though the boot was completely ripped. I'm sure those of you guys that are working on the cars can resonate with this. This is just a pile of frustration. This is what I call a pile of frustration. It's whenever you throw everything you possibly can to get a job done, and it's like nothing is working until you finally have a eureka moment. You take a look at what you have out and it just looks like organized chaos, right? So really long story short here is we got the ball joints out. We saw that the press worked extremely well for that scenario. However, whenever we try to leverage the same exact tool to get these old bushings out, it just doesn't work really well because this thing is just really heavy, number one. And number two, I don't know if I'm just doing this incorrectly, but it's just the positioning is really poor, especially with this little lip indentation here.
here with the stock lower control arms was just awkward, and I don't want to bend it. I came up with a different approach. And just in case that the camera doesn't pick it up pretty well from that far away, this is the lip that I'm talking about on the lower control arm. It just has a little bit of an indentation where you can't mount anything flush, and if you do, it will end up just pinching this corner right here and pushing that back out on both sides of the lower control arm, and I really want to avoid that. What I've done is I've gotten this bimetal hole saw and I'll insert it in here, and we'll just cut out this bushing. All right, there we go. We'll just do the same thing on the other side. This part is pretty painful, I'm not gonna lie, simply because you want to be careful whenever you are cutting into the sleeve that sits inside of the lower control arm. You don't want to cut into the actual lower control arm metal. And really, I don't know, the best thing that I found is just kind of doing it by the feel and occasional eye check. But even with that, it's not a perfect 100% silver bullet. On the other control arm, I just managed to nick the housing just a little bit, and I had to use a file to smooth it out to get it ready for the new bushings to be installed.
Much to my surprise, removing the 4 bushings and the 2 ball joints was actually the most difficult part of this entire project. Maybe it's because the lower control arms are just shaped awkwardly and you have to use multiple tools to actually just get this piece done. The key here is really just to have the patience.
I thought this was really funny. Before I actually continue to do anything, this bushing is absolutely shot. I mean, like, look at this. I'm almost positive that I don't even have to use the bimetal hole saw. All I can do is just use a hammer and hammer this guy out. Because look at this. So this is how much play I had in the suspension while I was driving around. I don't even need to use the screwdriver. I can just do it with my fingers. That's wild. Hole saw, not needed. This bushing is thick, so to get it started, I am going to use a sawzall just to get through the rubber piece. That way it makes it a little bit easier for me to cut through using the manual handsaw. I do think that the drill method was a little bit easier and use the bimetal hole saw. I think that this thing was a little bit too short and getting the entire rubber bushing out versus this, I could just kind of jam in there and tear off the joints that were holding onto the metal sleeve, and out it went. As far as cutting the metal sleeve, nothing really changed except for the fact that I think these sawzall just did a better job cutting it through than using the manual method. I don't know what it is. Maybe the surface area was greater, or the tension that you put onto the metal sleeve over here is a little bit better, and therefore was able to punch it out easier. So in the future, I will definitely keep that in mind and use a bimetal sawzall to get these out if I do that again. All right, the last bushing out. We're pretty much ready to go. Paint this thing, sand a little bit of the inner liner here because there is a little bit of rust. Freeze the bushings and then press everything back in and then assemble it on the car. And then go drive it. That's what's keeping me motivated. Just going and driving it. All right, now that we've pretty much cleaned everything, almost everything entirely in the rear, time to, man, I don't know what I'm saying. Now that we have everything cleaned up after many hours of degreasing, scrubbing away, getting the bushings out, we're finally to a point to where we can spray paint all of the stuff to get that nice protective layer. However, there's only one problem right now. It's about 44 outside with 80% humidity. So if you know anything about spray paint, it does not apply well in that temperature. So I think I came up with a solution. Go check it out. Introducing the ultimate mega paint booth, kind of, and repurposed to be a paint booth. I think it's going to work. Already, I think the strategy is going to be here that I'm going to hang up 2 pieces at a time, and whatever can be down below, I'll go ahead and coat it in thin layers, come back every 10 minutes and reapply it again. And that way, then I can prepare for the next items in the garage. Also, if you're questioning the duct tape, don't. You know why? Because I know that NASA had duct taped the ISS in order for it to prevent the hole from leaking into outer space. The more you know. Before we jump into painting, we do need to get the surface ready. In order to do so, we hit it with some brass wire wheel and a 320 grit sandpaper. Afterwards, we do need to remove all of the contaminants and oils so that way that the paint can adhere appropriately. Apply in even layers and wait 15 minutes in between every single coat. I will say that this epoxy-based paint has a very narrow window of temperature and humidity range, but I think I was able to make it work. With the first batch out, I was really impressed with the results, and the epoxy-based paint was able to cover all of the surface areas nicely. I'll be very keen on seeing what the long-term results look like with this car being used in the streets and getting dirty. While I was waiting around for the parts to dry, I did take a side quest to clean up the wheel wells to see what could have been hiding behind all of the dirt. Boy oh boy was I surprised that I did find some surface area rust from a wider wheel that used to be run on the car. I quickly did some cleanup work and patched the areas that I thought needed the protection using some rubberized undercarriage spray. Whew, damn, the sucker's heavy. Place your bets. What do we got? I have no idea. I think it's a VLSD. After a closer look, this does look like it's a viscous LSD, so that's pretty cool. I wasn't expecting that. And how I know that is by looking at this section right here. If it was an open differential, you would just have these 2 C-clip looking things with gear in the middle, and it would be exposed. And that's how people end up welding their diffs, is they put like a little metal piece and then weld the 4 corners. This doesn't have that accessibility anywhere. And I was hoping that maybe it was a 2-way LSD or a 1.5-way LSD, you know, that fancy stuff. In that case, it would be completely covered up and you would just have like a couple holes for the oil to go into. And just another note, I do know that people modify these things to shim them to get a better lock, especially if somebody is going out and attempting to drift. Pretty cool that I have a differential in here. It'll make the car definitely feel better. And now we just need to clean up all this old gasket material, put the new one on. Crisis. Now we'll let this thing wait and cure for about an hour, and then we'll come back and we'll do the work. Before I continue getting the hardware coated, I need to address this issue that this is a sway bar end link that is somehow bent. I have no idea how it ended up happening. Let's see if I can put some heat on this and get it to be corrected to where it's straight. Wow, I think that just might have worked. So I heated it up. I just put it against the kink that it had on it, and then I just put my entire body weight using a 2x4, and I'm pretty sure that I just got it to work. Wow, I think that did actually work. With a lot of hardware now degreased and derusted, I do want to put on some kind of protective film to ensure that they don't get rusted 2-3 months or years from now. The obvious choice is to definitely get these things zinc plated. However, being somewhat on a budget, I wanted to see what other alternatives were out there and give that a shot. But I found this stuff called Genolite or Genolite, and it seems to have a lot of trust across the pond in and this stuff actually working and protecting a lot of the exposed metal. It to me looks a little bit like clear coat, but maybe they have a proprietary mixture. There isn't a whole lot of information on the can itself other than the directions of how to apply it. So I'm going to follow the step-by-step directions, put on 3 nice coats on all of the hardware pieces and let it dry for 24 hours. And then we'll see how the hardware looks before and after, and then also taking into consideration the long-term test. I am taking a chance here after putting in a lot of elbow grease and effort into getting everything nice and squeaky clean. I am willing to take that risk. If this stuff works out really well, I hope this is useful information for anybody in the future looking to do the same thing.
With all the pieces disassembled, we're going to be using the energy suspension polyurethane bushings for the knuckle and lower control arm. In addition, we are going to be going with the GK Tech subframe bushings, lower ball joints, and the differential bushings as well. To tie everything in together, we are going to be using the fresh zinc plated hardware to make it nice and spiffy. I'm also opting in and using the SPC adjustable control arms, really because that they're using a very similar style as the OEM bushings from the lower control arms. A great advantage of the GK Tech subframe polyurethane bushing kit is that you have the opportunity to either install these using a 10mm correction or the factory ride height. After much deliberation, I'm going to go ahead and actually go with a 10mm roll correction just in case that at any time in the future I want to lower the car just a little bit more.
Step number 1 is we want to go ahead and grease the inner wall of the subframe. Same exact thing for the bushing. Want to grease it on the outer walls here. A quick note, you do want to use a shorter one here because this is the top of the subframe that's going to be going up against the chassis. A little bit more. Let's see if I can do this with my hand because I was able to do it last time with my hand as well. There we go. Pretty easy. The bottom one is a little bit more tricky. The way that the subframe is built, or the receiving end of the bushing, is that it slightly kind of tapers down. So it's not as easy to press it in whenever you're trying to seat the bushing. What we'll do is we'll use a traditional bushing press via the bolt, and that does the trick. I do want to be a little bit more liberal around these edges here just because it's not as a tapered bit, so I don't want it to cut or pinch the bushing itself. And then last but not least, we got to insert this pin into the bushing itself. And the instinct is just to go ahead and press it in this way. However, if you do that, you run the risk of the bottom popping out. So what you have to do is flip the subframe and then insert it from the top of the subframe, so that way that this here stays intact because it's compressed and it will not pop out. Lubricate the shaft, try to get it started. There we go, just like that, it's pressed in. And then just one more thing is that there's a little bit of protrusion on here on the sleeve. So what I will do is I'll just take, and now we just need to copy and paste on the back 2 corners. Okay, let's jam here. We're gonna now press all the polyurethane bushings into the knuckle, and then we'll move into the lower control arm. And initially I was using the ball joint tool to get these things going. However, turns out that you actually don't need that. And a simple bolt setup is going to work really well for this job. And let me show you. Want to just elaborate a little bit on that. So if we look at the setup right here, so we have 2 hardened steel washers, a bolt, the receiving end nut, and I did use a basically like an oversized coupler to make sure that when the lip is coming in to the knuckle, that it doesn't get pinched on the lip of, or I guess I should say the washer of the bottom. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into the very first one. Plenty of grease. Also, you do want to make sure that you press the bushing into the chamfered way. Like if you were to look really closely on the lip of the knuckle, there's a little bit of like a groove and it allows the bushing to seat itself like that a little bit. And then whenever you're pressing it in, it creates less resistance and it doesn't cut into the polyurethane bushing. Key here is just to take your time, not get frustrated, because it does get annoying to like mount all the hardware around and stuff. And sometimes that happens. There we go. So we got it going. What we'll do is we'll remove the bolt. And what we can do is we'll use a C-clamp here. There we go. And then for the metal sleeve, same thing, lubricate it, get it seated, lubrication, and then we'll do a similar approach using the coupler, and then we'll go ahead and press it in, make sure it complies. A little extra convincing. I will re-grease this later. That's pretty key with these bushings. You do have to apply a lot of grease and you do have to service them occasionally, but because this car is going to be mainly garage, I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. One last thing, I'm a little bit OCD. There's a little bit of like of a lip on the outside. See, it's like just a little bit, maybe less than half of a millimeter. So I kind of want to make it flush, just like that. Cool. And now we pretty much copy and paste. Let's jam now for the lower control arm. Same exact principle. We're going to be using the hardware and a receiving coupler to press this bushing in. There we go. Boom. Well, this one super easy to press in. That's interesting. Copy and paste. Now that the bushings are pressed in, we're going to go into the ball joint. So we're going to flip this around real quick. Fresh ball joint from GK Tech. We need to remove the rubber boot, get it seated into this receiving end, and then we're going to resort to floor activities to get this thing pressed in. This one is a little bit tricky because it's got this like circular thing going on, so it doesn't hurt to just grease it a little bit so we don't damage the rubber boot. There we go. Set that aside. So now that we have the shank and the ball joint exposed, can easily insert it into the receiving end without it snagging on any of the stuff, you know, like crunching it. We're going to use this Johnny here to go ahead and pretty much press this thing in here. And it will be up front. It takes so much effort to actually get it to get pressed in. Oh my god, this is an insane amount of torque right now is getting applied here. We are going to have to resort to floor activities here. Ball joint is pressed in. Unfortunately, it did take off some of the epoxy-based paint. That's alright, we'll touch it up. That's no big deal. Last but not least, done. Also, I thought this was really cool. When I tried to apply force on this is insanely tight. I thought that this was broken the first time that I installed it, and then I actually put the knuckle on it, and it moves around. So I am so excited to see how this car feels. It's going to be freaking sweet. Okay, I think there's no way of doing this easily. It's just gonna be awkward. Just gonna add a little bit of grease on the top of the subframe bushing so that way there's no weird squeaking and stuff. On the GK Tech kit, you have the option of using their washers or the factory mounting pieces. I'm gonna choose to go with the factory to keep it OEM plus. There's just no easy way of doing this, honestly. It's just awkward. Okay. Already the issue is going to be as soon as I start lifting the subframe towards the points, it's just going to start snagging the calipers. So I want to get that and move that. So I want to get it moved out of the way. There you go. Now that'll be a lot easier and this hopefully won't interfere. And my approach is going to be to use this transmission jack to try to level the subframe. So I would say the transmission jack and also 2x4s. I think it's going to be super awkward. Okay, this is probably the least elegant way of doing it, but at this point in time, I am not making any progress the way that I was doing it before. So when in doubt, just hammer it out is literally what I've just been doing. Taking a break. Putting the grease on the stubs was a really good idea. Using the rubber mallet too was a really good idea. You know what else is a good idea? Taking a break to get a snack. So I'm energized and I can keep working. So I'm wondering if I should keep the factory piece here because I think this looks kind of ugly. On the OEM one, you would have the factory bushing kind of come out of the subframe here and sit, create like a little seam. So it flowed a lot better. This kind of looks goofy now. So I think what I will do is put the GK Tech washer here and will look a little bit better. I think that looks a little bit better. So we just need to throw some paint on here and go ahead and use that spacer rather than the factory one. Okay, time to install the brackets. On the fronts here, we're gonna keep the factory just because it stiffens up the suspension just a little bit. I'm gonna temporarily use the factory spacers until the GK Tech one's dry. And I'm not gonna go full ham on the torque here, but at the very least I do want to get it started so that way it does hold and I can go ahead and install the differential because right now it's under the weight of the jack. We'll remove the transmission jack. I don't know what I'm telling you, I'm just gonna do it. Hanging it on its own. Very, very good. Now let's try and get the diff in here. Probably the easiest bushing install I've ever done. Let's see if I can get this done as easy as I can. I don't know what I'm saying. I'm really tired. Will this sucker even fit underneath there? I think it will just barely clear. Okay. Oh my God, don't tell me I wasn't filming any of that. Oh, that was really cool. I wasn't filming that at all. That is really cool. I love that. Bolt hole number 1. Okay, let's clean up some of this residue because I don't want it to attract all the dirt and the grime. Well, that is a massive bummer. I thought these are my new differential bolts. Turns out these are for an S14 and these are the ones that I need for the S13. So I'm gonna refurbish these guys right here and put them back on the car. A little bit disappointing that I ordered the S14 bolts, but at the very least I could use these two on my S14 and I guess I'll have spares for whatever future project that I have. I don't know. So I ended up refurbishing these with the epoxy based paint and it came out pretty good. I got a 4 set of washers for the differential because this one looked a little rough and I never coated it with Geno light coating. So fresh set of washers it is. These are between 32 and 41 foot-pounds of torque and what we're going to go with is a 35. I definitely feel a lot better about this is because I was rocking for the longest time driving around missing these two bottom bolts. So now that I have the 4 on here, that's going to make me feel a lot more confident.
As we are about to prepare installing the adjustable control arms and its respective hardware, I did want to point out that it is important to try to source an eccentric lockout kit to eliminate the eccentric bolts with installing these adjustable control arms. The eccentric bolt allows you to change the alignment, rotating itself around the bolt hole, effectively giving you camber or toe within a specified amount of range. With the adjustable control arms, you can actually exceed the OEM specifications in order to target the type of driving that you're looking for, whether it be drifting, track, or autocross. And you can technically stack these, it doesn't hurt anything. However, just be aware that whenever you are going to be doing any kind of hard driving, you may have a change in the alignment because the eccentric bolt has a very real potential of slipping.
Putting the suspension back on, we need to assemble the knuckle. Just lining up here with the existing stamp from when the hub and the knuckle were assembled. Torque calls for 58 to 72 foot-pounds of torque. We're going to go with 65 right in the middle. And there's just no elegant way, I think, of doing this. I have two options. You can either do it on the vise or you could do it on the car. But if you do it on the car, it requires for you to install the arms and then take them off again to get the axle to seat. So let's see if I can get this to work here. Okay, get that off. Johnny's heavy. Ow! Ow! I'm hoping this is the last time I have to use grease in a while because this stuff gets everywhere. And what I want to do is just dab all the polyurethane bushings so they don't get crunched. And then the same on the lower control arms. I'll come back to that just in a second here. For the time being, let it rest. My favorite part right here, and probably also the easiest part, inserting the bolts. All right, this is not going to be an elegant way here by any means, and I'm just going to do my best. Oh, boy. So I think I can lower this just a little bit. That way I have a little bit of an angle to insert the axle in here. Brake caliper out of the way. All right, I just slightly moved it in here and put it into the little concave in there. And it's a big shame how quickly it actually rusted. I thought some of the stuff was aluminum, but it turns out that it's just steel or cast iron, and it started to rust pretty quickly. You know how I view that? An opportunity to upgrade into better brakes. All right, let's get the axle in there now. There we go. Okay, let's see if I can get this axle in here now by popping this bolt off. This way it gives me additional flexibility so I can pull back the knuckle a little bit. And then there we go. Push the knuckle back. Just one thing is whenever you're installing the axles, you want to make sure that the bolt side goes towards the differential. All right, now let's get the camber arm in there. These call for the eccentric lockout here. And same for this guy. This calls for the eccentric lockout. Let's get the sexy part in here now. It's like super dusty. So the trick that I use is I'll bolt the bottom on here and then I'll use the jack to raise it into the two holes on the top of the chassis. Lower this guy a little bit. There we go. Doesn't have to be anything crazy, just finger tighten it. There we go. It's coming along real nicely. Next up, we need to torque the axle nut between 152 and 215 foot-pounds of torque. My torque wrench is just right on the border there. We're gonna pretty much max it out. Check it out. We're gonna have an issue, right? Can't really torque this whenever this thing is moving. So we're gonna borrow a hand from Mr. Crowley here to jam it. And put this cap on now with the fresh cotter pin. So time to do the drive shaft. It's going to be very interesting to see how the drive shaft is going to fit because I just changed everything to polyurethane and fresh bushing, so nothing is sagging. And I wonder if there's going to be any play between the diff and the drive shaft. All right, what do you guys think? Oh, nope, still fits well. Nice. Got lucky there. The differential to drive shaft nuts call for 28 to 32 foot-pounds of torque. I don't have the tool to make it fit in here, so we're gonna do the good and tight method. Oh boy, it is so messy right now. Woo. I'm narrowing it down now where pretty much almost everything is installed in the car except for the rear sway bar. And I don't know why, but this is like my most favorite part. Maybe because it's probably like the last part. And man, I'm excited for this, so let's get to it. Here they are, the entire kit, the energy suspension, rear bushing set replacement. Probably gonna mute this and narrate over the top of it because right now I have no idea what I'm saying and I need some extra time to formulate my thoughts. Freshly painted, new bushings, painted hardware, coated hardware, new bushings. This thing is gonna jam. Again, just when I thought that I was gonna escape the lithium or the grease, here I go again. This time though, I'm gonna be intelligent about it. It's a little bit of a battle to get these mounted in here. What I did was I took a 12mm socket, shoved it in there to create this little gap, and I pretty much just forced the edge on here until the socket popped out. So that will go there. Oh boy. I'm just trying to mount this thing, man. Okay, cool. Just let it hang out here for a second until I get the final bits in here. Oh, I hate the grease. It gets everywhere, everywhere. Nice, nice. Look at that. These are not the last parts. It's going to be the exhaust and then the wheels. I should just stop talking. Pretty much with everything bolted into the car, the last step here is just to get the exhaust on. And what I noticed is that the exhaust hangers are really worn out. This one is using a little clamp to try to compress it and raise it up. So I ran over to a auto store and picked up some fresh hangers and then also a replacement for the exhaust gasket to get it going. There are a couple of things that are just wrong with it. Like for example, you have a lot of the overspray from when the car is painted. So it's got a little bit of that shade of red. And I figured I can just get some Scotch spray with some water and take some of that stuff off. Yeah. And of course, there were a couple of other little nasty surprises whenever I took the exhaust off. One of them being is that this freaking hole got blown out. I suspect that somebody tried to weld the exhaust hanger piece onto it or it broke off. Not sure, but I will need to probably go get some of that exhaust tape, get it covered up. And then the other thing that just really bothers me is that like this just looks like diarrhea all over exhaust. And I know nobody's going to look at this from the bottom side of it. However, it's going to bother me because I know it's going to be there. And I want this to look nice. And look, check this out. Like, why do this? Why not just, cut it off? You have the tools, just get it off. I don't know. All right, we're going to go over with some 2500. Well, that looks already a lot better and hasn't even gotten to the polishing portion of it. Before I move on, I want to cut this piece off here. Before we move on here, this is what it was hanging off of. And it actually wasn't hanging off of this. It was just hanging off of this end right here. This is just a contraption somebody tried to weld on to, I guess, weld onto the exhaust here that's missing. The patchwork is not visible. It was supposed to be welded onto here, and I think it just blew through the weld, and they didn't fix it. or it held, and then it just broke off because it got too hot. Yep, some nice work over here. So what I'm gonna do is just cut this guy off here, try to cut this guy off here, and paint this black so it doesn't continue to rust. While we're in here and I have fresh gaskets and everything is clean, I figured why not, let's go ahead and change the differential oil. The service manual does recommend 75/90, and I opted in to go with this product. It was available on the shelf. It looked like it was pretty good, and after reading into some of the commentary, it seems to hold up to heavy use and abuse. A wise man once taught me is that always remove your fill plug first before you do the drain plug, in case you cannot get the fill plug open. So like this is a great example where I actually cannot fit the socket wrench in here. See, wise men never failed me. And when I say wise men, I really mean the internet. So it looks like that oil, it doesn't look super bad whenever it's pouring out, but there does appear to be a little bit of sludge in here. And then I put some thread sealer on the two drain and filler plugs, but just to make sure that there's zero leakage in the rear end. There we go. We want that constant stream. Make sure that the diff is nice and full. Good and tight. And I feel like I'm in a massive rush right now because I have a 10 a.m. appointment for an alignment, and it is 9:20. Stuff out for the time, so nothing is rattling around. All right, now for the long haul, dropping the car. Man, the humidity right now is absolutely insane. Oh man, okay. This is gonna be the first time the car has been started in probably like, I wanna say 4 months, so we'll see how it starts. It should. Oh man, I hate being in a hurry and stuff. Already like 9:45 and... Nice. Nice. Despite being in a rush, I was in really good spirits because the car was finally in the ground and I was about to get this thing dialed in and ready to rip on the streets. And something that I didn't notice whenever I was about to jump into the car is that little tiny puddle that you hawk-eyed folks have probably noticed. Of course, me being ignorant, I jumped in the car and I immediately started to drive towards the shop. As soon as I showed up, my fiance pointed out that something is dripping from underneath the car. And I kid you not, the fuel was squirting like a loaded super soaker on a hot summer afternoon. It was wild. And if you look on the side that it was actually really squirting on, it was of course towards the exhaust. It had to be towards the exhaust. So I am really counting my blessings that I didn't catch myself on fire while driving to the shop. Well, so I drove the car and spurred a gas leak. There's a hose that just absolutely ruptured, and we cut the line to try to get it to run, and it didn't work. Hose Can't remember if I got this on Amazon or what, but I'm gonna check, but it's garbage. A part store run, and a couple hours later, we were able to correct this. The shop was super cool, and then we're finally able to get the car aligned. I was looking forward to this, and little did I know it was gonna turn into a nightmare, so a 2-hour trip turned into basically the entire day. This is the life of cars, I guess. With a new day and avoiding a nightmare scenario, I was eager to test out the suspension to see what it would feel like in the twisties and turns. And I really wanted to answer the question, was this all worth it? I have no idea what that sound is. Hopefully it's fine. It's fine. It's just a little noise. It'll be all right. Keep it on the road. All right, I'm not gonna do anything crazy just because, again, I'm a little bit further out from my home and I really don't want to break down. Not that I think anything is going to happen because the car has been pretty good as far as temperature goes. And the suspension feels already pretty nice, quite nice. Woo, I love that turn in. It feels so much better than what it was before. Sports cars running up and down this road. Corvettes, GTRs, GT3s. I think there was a GT4, Porsche Spider. So that was really freaking cool to see all that. Golly, the turning just feels so much more precise than what it was. It's just so much more confidence inspiring. That's so cool. On some of the long sweeper turns, I remember very specifically that the engine felt like it would point to the direction of where the car wanted to go, especially if you're on and off the throttle. And now I'm starting to think maybe that was actually the alignment being jacked up all along. Now you point it in the direction and the car just goes. It's freaking phenomenal. It feels so much better. In fact, I think I recall saying that the car felt fragile. It does not feel like that anymore. The car definitely feels like it went for a very long gym session and it is now pumped. Ooh, it just feels so good there. Like the response, I just love it. It's so confidence inspiring. Like, I love that. Like before I remember on that corner right there, it would just go like this, like do the weird little wobble thing. Right now, plant it, straight as an arrow. That's so good. It feels so good. I will say, one of the things that I did not really anticipate is there is a little bit of more drivetrain noise coming from the rear. I anticipated it to be a little bit lower, but to be honest with you, it doesn't feel that much different from solid bushings. I guess the polyurethane bushings are, I don't know, about equal, if not the same, in terms of vibration, so take that for whatever it's worth. Friends, woo!
So in the end, was replacing everything in the rear subframe worth it? Absolutely yes. The car is still running on some crusty old tires that are also a little bit of a mismatch on every single corner, and I could immediately tell that as soon as I jumped into the car with a fresh alignment that the car feels just that much more confident in being able to handle anything that it's thrown its way on the corners. The other added benefit to doing the rear subframe refresh is also really preserving the chassis. And on top of that, I'm actually able to jump into this car and enjoy driving it and know that it's safe to actually operate. And I don't think that the suspension modifications end here, because I do think that there's still room for improvement. Like, I know that the front end doesn't have a sway bar, and then on top of that, I do think if I was to purchase some really nice grippy tires, this thing would just feel that much better. Before we get to that point, we do need to take care of some mechanical bits in the engine bay and also refresh the interior. I'm debating on which one to do on the next episode, so let me know. Comment down below on which one you'd like to see. Is it the interior or the mechanical bits and pieces? And either way, we're going to make this thing better little by little and bringing it back to its former glory. Well, that's it for today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment, or don't, that's cool too. I appreciate you just checking this out. I'll just be here questioning my life choices as to why I'm spending all this time on the car.